Welcome to episode 18 of Roughing the Passer, your NFL podcast. Uh, and we got the whole crew this week. Last couple of weeks, we were missing the youngest and ugliest guy of our three-man team. And
And maybe the ugliest. But that's where I'm fair. So I'll
he,
take it.
he's back this week. Let's go right to the scoreboard. Little note, as most will know, uh, less less games on this Sunday than normal because of some COVID shifting of the schedule. So let's go to Thursday. Let me just pull up the whole thing, and we'll kind of go Thursday. Where is it?
I think it's probably at the top.
All right, there we go. Yep. Thursday, the Chiefs uh, with a walk-off overtime win over the Chargers, 34-28. Yesterday, Saturday game, the Patriots lost to the Colts in Indianapolis. Opens the door for Buffalo with that one. They lost 27-17 to the basically the Jonathan Taylor led Colts, as Carson Wentz really didn't do much. Today's games, the Cowboys beat the non-NFC East winning Giants. They can thank me for the kiss of death. Cowboys 21-6 over the Giants. The Dolphins outlasted the Jets 31-24. This one was the shocker of the day. A few people probably lost money on this one. The Lions at home not only beat the Cardinals, but beat the Cardinals soundly 30-12. The Jacksonville Jaguars finally got rid of Urban Meyer, but they did not get rid of their losing streak. They lost to the Texans today, 30-16 in the battle of like the first pick in the draft bowl, and the Texans may not get it. Looks like the Jaguars and the are trying to get it. So Texans 30-16 over the Jags. The Bills trying to right the ship. Did that today, 31-14 over the Panthers. Somehow, some way, it's never a pretty Steeler game anymore. But they are still alive. It was really a must-win game, and the Steelers had to rally late, 19-13. And I'll say this much about them: they're one of the best fourth quarter teams in the league. If they could just pretend the other three quarters were the fourth quarter, we might be really, really good. But got it done today to keep postseason hopes alive. The 49ers beat the Falcons 31-13, as that hurts the Falcons' chances of seeing extra games. And the Bengals and the Broncos 15-10. The Bengals beat the Broncos. The Ravens go for two again, like they did similar in the Steeler game, did not make it. And the Packers 31-30 over the Ravens. We needed that. We were Packers fans today, being the Ravens were in a division. And their quarterback there, Huntley, doing his best Lamar Jackson impression. Actually had a pretty good stat day, but the Packers hold on there. And the Saints and Buccaneers are going on right now. And it looks like the Saints have a 6-0 lead in the second quarter over the Buccaneers. So I don't know. The Buccaneers cannot scoring yet. They do have the ball, though. Again, some of these schedules, let's talk about the upcoming games because it's all kind of messed up now with some COVID rescheduling. Tomorrow, Monday Night Football, or you're going to get some Monday afternoon football as well, as the Raiders take on the Browns at 5 p.m. Then you got the Vikings, 5 p.m. Eastern. Then you got the Vikings against the Bears at 8:15. That was regularly scheduled for tomorrow. And on Tuesday, the Washington football team is going to Philadelphia. Again, these are games moved because of COVID, and the Seahawks will take on the Rams. So you got some Tuesday night football this week besides Monday Night Football. And, people always complain that there's almost football on every day. This week, they're going to really not be excited about if they're not the football type. They're not going to be excited because you can get football almost every day at this point. So that's the scoreboard rundown and schedule rundown. Let's put up our picks here. Let's see. We'll go over the standings first. David Lee here is still out in front with a 31-24-1 record. Jordan will be in the second spot before this week at 29-25-2, and I had actually a decent week to get back to 500 again, 28-28. So the positive thing going into this week is all three of us are at least 500 or better. So that's good. Let's go. We'll start with David being the leader. The Washington games move, so that we'll have to wait and see there. Green Bay only won by 1, so they did not cover. Tennessee, I don't blame you for this pick as a Steelers fan. I'm glad it was wrong. I'm not going to lie. I'm glad it was wrong. The Steelers winning by 6, so 0-2 with the Washington game to be determined, and the Rams game was moved. So you're 0-2. You need those 2 move games to fall your way to have a 500 week. Let's go to Jordan.
The Packers killed me on that 1-point win.
Yeah. Let's go to Jordan, who's behind you by a couple games. He took the Washington football team too, so he'll have to wait and see. He took Green Bay too. I think he copied you. So he lost that one. He took Denver in the 3 points. Jordan, I figured out, does not like the Bengals. So I noticed he picks against them a lot.
They usually help me out. They decided to win today, but
yeah. So he lost that one, and Las Vegas. What's that? Tomorrow night. So you too are 0-2 with 2 games to be determined. Let's go to me. I took Miami and 7. That's what they won by. So I'm going to get my first tie of the year. That's better than a loss. I'll take it. Minnesota, that game was moved. I took Tampa Bay in the points. I almost didn't. I said, man, it's a lot of points. And now they're down 6-0. So I got like 18 points for them to make up. And the Vegas game was moved. So I'm today with games that are being played. Tampa Bay's is going on right now, but I would lose that if nothing changes very much there. And I pushed on to Miami. So for the games that were played today, none of us yet have lit up the scoreboard as far as with W. So, but the schedule being all changed. I think we each have like 2 games that haven't even been played yet to see what our weekly record will be. So there's the picks, and it's week 15. So we're running out of we got to really see where we are after this week, and then it's sort of crunch time with if you fall too far behind, you're probably not going to have a shot at that anymore. So there you go. Let's get right into the first thing before we do get into our game balls and goats as we traditionally do. Let's talk about, not ad nauseum. We've kind of talked about it before, but finally, the owner of Jacksonville, Khan, decided it was finally time to tell Urban Meyer to clean out his office. It came to light that doesn't like kickers too much, calls them by bad nicknames, and allegedly kicks them in the shins. And, that was kind of the last story, sort of the break before Shad Khan really had to just finally cut bait. He did come out and say that he has been thinking about it for the last 3 to 4 weeks is, I believe, how he worded it, and the recent news just kind of forced his hand. I'll say this too. I think he's done for sure in the NFL, but some of these behavior things, I don't know if he even gets, a college job. I think he's going to probably have to take a year or two off and maybe get back in the booth as either an analyst on a game day or in a studio, just kind of talking about college football. But I think his days maybe in the locker room and the sideline are over. I think his reputation's really been soiled with what happened in Jacksonville. There's been stories even prior to that, but I think sort of the Jacksonville stuff sort of kind of cemented the kind of who he is, and he's not really the moral of the story is not really a good dude. And
moral of the story. So there is no moral.
Yeah, there's no morals when it comes to and in today's cancel culture, we got to call it what it is. I think that even gets amplified even more. I'm not condoning any of his actions, but honestly, if he probably would have did almost the same things 10 years ago, he'd probably get another job a lot sooner. But in today's day and age, I think he's going to be on the outside looking in. So you guys, I guess to open it up for discussion, do you agree, disagree, and is that where he winds up in either in a booth for college football or a studio talking about college football?
Yeah, John, like I texted you, I think, talking about, a bad team with 2 wins and a rookie quarterback. You kind of expect them to be in that, at the bottom of the barrel of the league. So this certainly wasn't about the results. It was about a lot more than that,
Yeah.
So and that's going to be carried with him no matter where he goes. So yeah, he had a lot of success at Florida. He had a lot of success at Ohio State, but this isn't college. I actually kind of, I thought he was pretty well, but pretty good as an analyst. So I have a really hard time seeing him being a head coach anywhere in any major college program right now. There's a lot of turnover going on right now, and with coaches in college, LSU, Notre Dame come to mind pretty quickly. But yeah, I don't see him taking on a college job. Certainly not quickly. But I don't know if he fits right back into his old job as an analyst or not. But yeah, just what stood out to me was that there was so much more there than just results based. There's no way. Just all the extracurriculars that came with Urban Meyer was what did him in. So, and I'm kind of interested to see kind of what how Jacksonville finishes the season. Obviously, they lost today, but and kind of how they kind of put it together next year. So we'll see.
Jordan?
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think just to come in, I think that was going to be the big thing was he hasn't had to face kind of losses. He hasn't had to come in to games where he's not the favorite, where he's going to have to pull some kind of tricks out and make stuff happen to win. And I think early on, he saw that's not going to happen. This isn't going to be a cakewalk. And I don't know, because I'm not Urban Meyer, but it really sounds like he checked out early on and just realized this was a lot harder of a job than I think he thought it was. I think he thought he was kind of going to walk in there with Lawrence and even if they're losing, at least have some exciting offense, and that wasn't there either. And I think without, being able to do kind of what he's done in the past, where he's just kind of medically checked out, he was kind of stuck. And I think you kind of saw the integrity of kind of who he is when stuff isn't hitting in all cylinders. When they're struggling, he seemed to kind of crumble and really pull himself away from the team. And it's just I don't see how any program, pro or college, can bring kind of a guy in who's shown to really abandon ship when it gets hard. And I mean, the big thing to me was, as bad as it was at the bar and it was, some random lady, the fact he stayed, I think, in the city they were in and didn't fly home with the team, that's a big thing. I just feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars and Urban Meyer felt like two very different things. And when you have a guy who's the coach of your team, they should be much more synonymous. And I think I just don't. I agree. I don't see how any college program can really bring this guy in and say like, this is the guy. And I understand college football isn't typically filled with ethics, but I think this is definitely not the guy you can bring in and tell, people's parents that, he's going to be coaching your kids and whatnot. And
Yeah,
it's
I,
gonna be
I
interesting.
go ahead.
I think he could get a job in college. I think it would be very similar to the Les Miles situation where he gets a much lower scale job like at Kansas. But I think in this situation is I don't think Urban's ego really allows him to kind of take a job that isn't, the marquee mecca of football. And I don't know. I think he was so poorly to just manage a team to that extent where you really throw everyone under the bus except yourself. I don't see a team really ever deciding to pick a guy like that up again. He's had great success.
Who's going to go coach with him after what he
That's
did?
and that's the thing. He alienated really everyone on the team, whether it's players. I mean, he picked out like the most insuspicious position on the team and a kicker, and like to make beef as a head coach with a kicker, it's just mind-boggling. And I just I don't know how long it takes, and I don't know if there's ever, a lot of what happened is it's tough to shake. It's something I think that isn't kind of a small outburst thing. A lot of it seems like it's adding up to this is kind of who Urban Meyer is when the chips aren't all going for him. And I think I don't know a whole lot of teams really that would kind of hitch their wagon to a guy like that.
Yeah, I think Jordan. I agree with everything you said. I think that really the only college program that potentially could offer him jobs going to be a very small school, and Urban Meyer's ego is not going to go to a very small school. So I think that window is closed. Like you said, he threw all his assistants under the bus, and this was before he got fired. They were still working, which was a very odd thing to do. Even if it's true, and even if you believe it's true, to say it publicly the
Well,
way
the other
he
thing
sort
is
of
that
did.
he's the guy that hired him anyway. So if you don't like how they're doing, don't you're the one that brought him in.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something. I think he kind of took the job knowing he was going to have a Trevor Lawrence in the fold. I think, like you said, I think he thought. I don't think he thought he was going to win the Super Bowl, but I think he thought that offense was going to put up some points. That wasn't the case. Trevor Lawrence struggled, and one of the first moves he did, was to fire his offensive coordinator. So he was blaming, right there kind of tells you the mindset. Hey, we're not scoring enough points. Trevor Lawrence not playing well. Can't be my fault. So hey, OC, clean out your office. And it didn't change much. And then other incidents start coming out. The bar, how he treated people in practice. Then basically all these assistants suck and they're not doing their job very well. It's more them than me, but it's basically what he was saying. And it just all this stuff just started to pile up, and finally, I mean, you knew like this thing was headed this way, and finally, Shad Khan said enough's enough. Probably could have done it sooner, but no one likes firing a coach in midseason. Regardless of what you think of him, Urban Meyer's name itself is a big name, and so I'm sure he was leery of maybe making that call too soon. But I think finally, with all these stories, it became every week something else broke, and finally and it wasn't good stuff. And I think finally Shad Khan said, forget about we're probably not winning much. The risk of firing a coach in the middle of the season is you're kind of dooming your season for sure the rest of the way. And that's why the GMs and owners are reluctant to do it. I think Shad Khan finally figured out, like, we're probably not winning many games with him or without him. So I'm not bringing this guy back. And why just prolong the agony? Let's just cut bait and move along. And it'll be interesting to see who they get next. I would say the same thing. I would say what our Mets did in baseball, and what Jacksonville needs to do is get somebody with experience who's been there and done that, and maybe can help Trevor Lawrence kind of progress. I mean, the season he's having, I got to be honest with you, I'm shocked at how poor it really is. I know rookie quarterbacks have their struggles, but to the extent he's not playing well is honestly pretty shocking. Not even throwing touchdown passes. I think it's 6 or 7 games now straight or something like that's. We can criticize Zach Wilson for throwing the ball to the wrong team, but he is throwing some touchdowns intermixed in there, and Trevor Lawrence is not doing that.
Well, I think the thing we're gonna start to see now that Urban is gone is how probably dysfunctional it really was. I think the report with Marvin Jones was like to the effect he didn't even want to show up to the facility just because he didn't want to be around Urban Meyer. And then he had to be convinced to go and basically showed up, and then exploded. Him and Urban Meyer started having words there. And it's just it is, and I agree, I think some falls on Lawrence, but I think there's just been no I think the sad thing is I think Meyer legitimately kind of checked out early on in the year and really gave up on making serious game plan changes or serious, scheme adjustments. It feels like they kind of just walked in to the stadium with the same, we're not going to run too much. We're kind of just going to throw it out there and see what happens. And it didn't work. And it sounds like he just kind of packed it in, and whatever happened on the field happened. And I think obviously it is on Lawrence, a little bit is, but I think a lot of, I don't know if he has a guy in that locker room that he can look to, whether it's a player or a coach, and feel like he has some security or some, person he can look to. I think the locker room right now feels kind of like almost like a semi-pro football team, the way kind of having Urban kind of run it the way he was.
Yep. Comments from DR here. Good one here. Lovie Smith would establish a great sense of professionalism down there in Jacksonville. They need a guy like that. I believe he's in Illinois, if my memory is correct. He is coaching in college, but he's an NFL guy who's now in college, and he wants to come back to the NFL. I like that by DR. DR's a Packer fan, so he has hey guys, just signed on. My Packers are NFC North champs, thankfully, because Harbaugh goes for 2 at the end there. Eric Stokes ought to be a finalist for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He is playing well, but there's another guy that David Lee knows very well that's probably going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and that's going to be Micah Parsons. I mean, he's been even mentioned for just plain out Defensive Player of the Year. So it's obviously he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Another comment: let's admit that there's not much talent on the offensive side of the ball in Jacksonville. I agree. Their receivers are no great shakes. I mean, but when you got Trevor Lawrence and Etienne got hurt in the preseason.
Well, that's the thing, though.
Robinson and Hyde.
you can't expect Lawrence to be good when the first person you mentioned that's good on their offense is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
They're just very, and I think the fact that your best player really on offense, which would be Marvin Jones, is having such a discord with your head coach that he didn't want to show up. I think there's probably a lot more problems, I think, with kind of what was going on there with Urban Meyer than that we even know yet.
You think Marvin Jones would like a mulligan on his free agent signing destination? Yeah. I mean, it's a mess there. They have some weapons. I like Laviska Chenault. They have two running backs in Hyde and James Robinson. Robinson was great last year. I'm going to blame. I'm not saying they're the best offense in the NFL. Um, uh, or even say they're very good, but they're better than they played. I'm going to blame that on Urban Meyer just being in over his head, maybe checking out, like you said, Jordan, early when he realized like this isn't going to be, me making a bad team very good very quickly. But they have to. Lovey Smith, like Dr. said, someone of that ilk, someone who's not going to be overwhelmed by the magnitude. Uh, of the situation. Another comment: the Buccaneers shut out in the first half for the first time this year. Saints D looking good. I'm actually going to take credit for that because I picked the Bucks in an 11.5-point spread. I gave them the kiss of death. So
the Saints have their number.
Yeah, they do. The Saints do match up for whatever reason. They always seem to do well against the Buccaneers. All right, so it's what we do every week: game balls and goats, and I'll let David Lee go first with the game ball, his first game ball.
Well, you kind of alluded to a Thursday night game ball that you might be giving out, so I'll kind of throw this out there, and it might be a consensus. But I had to go with Travis Kelce's career day, the best game of his career. I did go back and look at his game by game logs. He's never had this many yards. He's had 2 touchdowns before, but 10 receptions, 191 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Not only the sort of complete production, but where his touchdowns came. His first touchdown came to tie the game at the end of the fourth quarter to send it into overtime in a really back and forth fourth quarter. His second touchdown, 34-yard touchdown, comes to win the game. So not only a ton of catches, a ton of yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 touchdowns when it mattered most. And also just a really cool matchup between the Chiefs, the Chargers, Mahomes, Herbert. That kind of the Chiefs have been there. Obviously, they've kind of in a lot of ways owned the conference for the past 2 to 3 years, and the Chargers are kind of one of those rising teams that are maybe not quite there yet, putting it together, but they absolutely have their quarterback. So, two young quarterbacks. So not just a good performance, but a big, hyped up battle in the AFC. So that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, a career day from Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I picked him too. He's good. That's not breaking news, but like you said, kind of career day in a close game when they needed someone to step up. He did, and so I went with Travis Kelce as well. Jordan, did you make it a consensus?
I did not have Travis Kelce, even though he kind of deserved it. I went with a couple other guys, but I went with Jared Goff today. I think 21 for 26, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I think anytime you put up points like that against a good Cardinals team who's really shown throughout the year to play good defense and they put points on teams like really no one else. So I think Goff's played pretty well really all year, but I think it was nice to really see kind of him and Dan Campbell get over that hump and not just be close with a team, really kind of break through and dominate a whole game. And it's nice to see Goff kind of do it because I think he's been close and it's tough with kind of that lack of talent. So it was good to see him kind of finally step in and kind of have the reward at the end of all the work through the game. Is he frozen?
Did he get stuck?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see.
Maybe he just likes that picture, like that freeze frame. That is a good sign. I actually had golf as well, Jordan, as my next one, mainly because I had to pick a Lions player.
Yeah.
Beating the I think the Cardinals went from number 1 in the NFC to like number 4 with that loss. I think it depends on what the Buccaneers do tonight, and they're losing. But yeah, I had golf as well as my second one.
Yeah, he's just done. He hasn't really hurt the Lions. I think it's so tough as they don't. It's tough even to name a receiver on that team.
Yeah,
So
Hawkinson is probably like the most reliable, receiver. And they've gotten rid of some guys, but yeah, I had to go with him too, just as I had to pick somebody from the worst team in the league, beating arguably the best team.
So Jordan, you took golf. Did I hear David Lee? I stepped out apparently because of internet issues. Did you make your second? Did you pick somebody else?
I just piggybacked on him because golf was my number 2. I was telling Jordan I almost had to find somebody on the Lions to pick just to throw them a bone for arguably the worst team in the league beating maybe the best team in the league. I had actually texted Mike Payne, Beckett's editorial director, who you probably know, John. He's from Michigan, the big Lions fan. I said, "What's up with the Lions?" And he said, only the Lions would squander the first pick of the draft to beat a team that's trying to get the number 1 seed. So you can count on the Lions to screw up their number 1 pick.
Yeah, I didn't pick golf. Not saying he wasn't worthy, just I didn't pick him. I went back to Thursday and I picked Patrick Mahomes. He had a huge day. Very little incompletions. Didn't throw the picks as he's sort of done a little bit more this year. It was a game where, let's be real, those are the 2 best teams in that division. The Chargers are trying to make a statement saying, hey, we're ready to take a little of the shine, the spotlight. They didn't do it, but I do think even in the losses, they've showed like they're right there. They're on the doorstep. They're not ready to come in just yet. Maybe another year or 2, depending on how drafts and injuries play out. But I think Mahomes kind of said, hey, this is still my division, and we're still the better team. And you're a good young quarterback, Justin Herbert, but not just yet. And so I gave it to Mahomes. I know he's had these kind of games before. It's not uncharted territory, but I think this was his best game of the year, and a very important time against a very good team. And so I gave Kelsey and Mahomes, 2 game balls on Thursday. So I'll we'll snake draft it. I'll pick. Let's go with the GOAT. And when we talk about GOATs on this program, we're not talking about greatest of all time. We're talking about the GOATs that are not the greatest of all time and had a bad week, and either cost their team potentially a win or just underperformed, and it could even be in a win. My first guy in that category, and I know he's not the starter, but he came in today and it was bad. He threw 3 picks, completed less than 50% of his passes. And that's Mike Glennon of the New York Giants. Yeah, that Mike Glennon. He's still in the league. Although when you play like you did today, that window gets a little bit tighter. I know it's tough to just come in when you haven't played a ton, let's say. But I think 13 for 24 or 11 for 24 was a bad line. No touchdowns, 3 picks. Dallas, I didn't think played, and the defense played great. I didn't think they played great overall. I mean, it's a 21-6 game, and then he threw 3 picks. He even has half of a decent game. That game's probably even a little bit closer, and the Giants have a shot to win. So, Mike Glennon, you got to do better than that, and so he gets my first go. We'll kind of go back in Jordan. Who got on your GOAT list?
So yeah, I had Glennon too. It's a tough situation, but I think anytime you give the other team 3 extra opportunities and you yourself put no points on the board, you're really setting yourself back, especially against a team like Dallas with kind of the offense they have. They're not going to have to go out and go over the top if you just keep giving them the ball. They'll kind of milk the clock and really slow the game down. And I just think anytime it's a tough game anyways going in, I think they're probably outdueled talent wise, and I think just kind of throwing up a bad game like that doesn't move the needle at all.
Well, I'm assuming David watched the game. Did he put Glennon on his GOAT list to make it a consensus?
Yeah, he was my number 2 on my GOAT list. I had to do that. Just really really rough day, but a lot of credit to the Cowboys defense, getting the pressure, I think 3 different guys had picks on Glennon. When you look at kind of, I'm not a big fan of Daniel Jones, but he brings a little bit more to the table than Glennon. Glennon might be the most statuesque quarterback in the NFL, and not in a good way.
Well, if this was Greece, if this was the Roman Empire, statuesque is good. Statuesque is not good.
I don't mean that. I don't mean chiseled. Yeah, I don't mean that.
Statuesque in the NFL, not so good. In the Roman Empire, good. Not in the NFL, but yeah,
not so much. So I think Dallas did a great job of just kind of making him, scramble around for his life a little bit, and he's a no-go on that. So yeah, it was kind of an easy pick. Dallas further kind of solidified the division, and I think that was their 4th win in the row. But again, kind of credit more the defense. But yeah, he had a rough day. Saquon Barkley was kind of doing what he's done all season a little bit, had a couple of good plays, had a couple of exciting plays, but by the end of the game, just not there. So it's not like Glennon got a ton of help either. But yeah, it was pretty rough for the what is he, like 6'7"?
Well, you said it was an easy pick. He threw 3 of those, by the way, as well. So punt, good.
And I think to 3 different players, so he was generous with them.
All right, as we typically do, we'll snake draft. Let's go with another GOAT off your list there, David.
Yeah, another GOAT, since 2 of my game balls are already done, Goff and Kelsey. I don't mean to pick on the Steelers, but a guy that I have been really excited about ever since his season at Alabama last year, but rookie running back Naji Harris with 18 total yards on 12 carries, 1.5 yards per carry, his worst game of the season. But overall, if you look at what he's kind of put together for the whole season, I think he's averaging what would pace out to be like 1,600 total yards from scrimmage, rushing and receiving. So he's kind of been, good at both. But in a tight game, a win over the Titans. But what did the Steelers have? 35 yards total rushing. But yeah, Harris putting up 18 yards. But overall, I think he's had a good rookie season. I don't think he's kind of really had the bust out performances as I thought he would have so far. But his body of work is still pretty impressive, and I think he's going to have a really good NFL career. But pretty rough day for Naji Harris, below 20 total yards rushing.
Yeah, I didn't have him on my list. Definitely had the stat line worthy of it. I'm going to blame Canada, as they say. and Matt Canada. Very predictable with his play calling. They almost always run on first down. Team stacked the line. I think the Titans today said, you know what, Naji, you're not going to beat us. If we're going to lose, it's going to have to be someone else. I think there was a little bit of that today, and so I'll give Naji a little pass. I'm not arguing the pick. I think it's when you go 12 carries for 18 yards, 1.5, like you said, definitely GOAT worthy, how we do GOATs. And so I'm not arguing. I'm just defending them a little bit because I watched the game and I know what's going on there. So I'm gonna blame a little bit of the offensive play calling. Didn't set him up to be as successful as he could have been. Jordan, who do you got for another GOAT?
I'll stay in the same game. I'll just on the other side. I had Ryan Tannehill again. 23 for 32 and 153 in a pick, and it's just it just isn't enough. I think we keep waiting for him. We don't have you don't have Derrick Henry. You know you're kind of depleted, and you gotta kind of step up. And in a game like that game was, where neither team really acted like they wanted to win. I think the Titans kind of took an early lead and really just took their foot off the pedal and kind of sat back. And it's hard because I want to like Tannehill, and I think he is a good quarterback. It's almost like he doesn't take that initiative or that extra step kind of late in games at times without having the security of having a Derrick Henry with him. And I think today was a very winnable game. I think with the lead they got, um, they he should have really been able to kind of take more control and lead them throughout. And they just played sloppy late. He threw kind of an iffy pick too. I just think this week and kind of the weeks leading up to it, he's been it's you just kind of expect more. And I know there's not much around him, but I think that's where you want him to kind of step up and fill that void and kind of carry a bit more on his back. And he hasn't really yet done that for me.
Yeah, I didn't pick him, but again, another pick I won't argue with. I view kind of Ryan Tannehill. I don't know if you guys agree with this. Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins as sort of similar type quarterbacks. I think the difference is Kirk Cousins has more of, to me, like a killer instinct. Really wants to beat you, will go for the juggler. And I think Tannehill's a similar quarterback, but just almost like nice to and I don't know him, but I think he's just missing that, foot on your throat, finish kind of attitude that I think Kirk Cousin has. And I think that's the difference between both of those players. I think you alluded to some, Tennessee always sort of, without a Derrick Henry injury, would probably be a favorite to make a run, but it's like that quarterback position sort of holds them back a little bit. I think it's that killer instinct that's missing in Tannehill. Like today, they're up by double digits, and he almost just sort of rest on his laurels, and the Steelers were able to, thankfully, for our sakes, come back. He didn't make my list, but again, worthy. I went with a guy, on a team that had won a couple games recently, starting to look like, hey, maybe this coach might save his job, and maybe we can make an interesting sort of backdoor player run. Today they lost, and this guy, who's a really good wide receiver, didn't contribute. He put up a goose egg, no catches, no yards. He was targeted 4 times. I know his quarterback got hurt, but if you're a good receiver, you find ways to get open for whoever the quarterback is to throw you the ball. And that's Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos. Put up a goose egg. And again, I know Bridgewater went down, but when you, in a game against the Bengals, their defense is good, but I don't think they're great. And you put up no catches, you definitely GOAT worthy. You lost only by less than a touchdown, 15-10, and you didn't get on the stat sheet other than 4 targets. you're gonna make my GOAT list. And so I went with Jerry Jeudy. I think he's a very good wide receiver. Sort of overcame some of the drops early in his career. Today, I don't think he dropped any, but he also didn't catch any. That's an issue. So he made my list. Going back down, we'll just kind of snake draft it. Jordan, any whoever's left on your list that you want to talk about, GOAT or game ball?
So I'll stay in the game I was in. So I went with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he ended up with 14 total tackles. And I think another kind of accumulation thing over the last couple of weeks is, as bad as Pittsburgh's run game has been, they, I think, would be miles worse if you didn't have Minkah Fitzpatrick back there. I think there's plenty of plays where he's really one-on-one and he makes kind of those tackles in open field against running backs that typically don't kind of go down on those. And he's their primary guy in coverage as well. But I just think anytime you make 14 tackles, he recovered a fumble as well. It just feels like whenever there's kind of a play that needs to be made, it's either him or TJ Watt somewhere. And that's really, not to kind of harp on the Steelers, is what's kept them alive is they make those kind of big splash plays. And it's because they give up so many yards rushing, you have to kind of make those plays and make those kind of big stops where it counts. And usually when it happens, there's kind of one or two guys that are there, and it's typically Minkah.
Yeah, I can't. You make double-digit tackles like that. He made the critical one really to kind of end the game and short of the first down.
No, that was Hayden.
Hayden. But he has made a lot of run stops. But that's more on the linebackers and that front three guys
that's what
not
I'm saying.
getting it done. So that's why I wouldn't pick him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is because of the lack of run defense in front of him. He's kind of had to be somewhat of a linebacker.
I mean, let's be real. You know where I'm going. You don't want Minkah Fitzpatrick making 14 tackles because that means you didn't get it done up front. But I mean, he's worthy. He's worthy of that award. You know, of this week.
You don't want him there, but if he's not there, they're going for a lot more yards as well. I think he's not saving, a whole lot of yards, but he's saving touchdowns.
Yeah, David. Any way you want to go? What whoever's left on list wise.
Yeah, I've got one each. So you mentioned this guy a little earlier, taking over for the Ravens, but Tyler Huntley in place of Lamar Jackson, a little Lamar Jackson-esque. Of course, a quarterback leads the Ravens in rushing. Again, it doesn't matter who it is. They cannot have a running back lead the game in rushing. We talked about this last week with Lamar's season stats, but I thought he did. I thought he did pretty well. Obviously, they weren't stretching the field, with him, but 215 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. 28 of 40. So I was pretty surprised that he slung the ball 40 times. This game was not as close as the final score, obviously, going back to my pick where the Packers let me down with not covering that 2-point spread. It was I think it was 31-17, kind of late in the fourth quarter. But Huntley also ran the ball 13 times for 73 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns came pretty late to kind of close that gap a little bit. So maybe that was kind of trash time. But overall, I thought, pretty good. They were still somewhat in the game against, the Packers, with the Cardinals losing. The Packers may be the best team in the NFL now. Especially maybe the most complete. But the Ravens have had a lot of really close games this year, kind of go, either way. So this was kind of another close one. But like I said, even though those last 2 touchdowns were a little trash time. And all week we kind of heard a lot about, is Lamar Jackson going to play? Is he not going to play? Maybe the Ravens knew a little bit more that he wasn't going to play, and they just didn't want to kind of give that away. But credit to Huntley for being ready. And at least putting up a good effort.
Yeah, I mean, I watched some of this game. He did play fairly well. I mean, they were missing a lot of guys from either due to injury or the COVID protocols. Even in the secondary, they brought up practice squad guys. So this game, like, I don't blame you making this pick. I almost picked this game myself. I don't know why I didn't, but this game sort of had like blowout city sort of written on, and I think Huntley's performance kind of kept them in the game. Dr has a comment, and he's a Packers fan, so he says his goat from the peanut gallery is the Packers special teams. I have no idea what a teams coach does to impact the special teams performance, but our special teams is horrible. So Dan says give one to the special teams unit and coach in Green Bay. I'm going to go with my last game ball that I have on my list is from that game. So that's why I'm going to mention him now. He did not wasn't on the winning team, but played very well and probably obviously a contributor obviously to Huntley's stat line. He had a Travis Kelce like performance, and he's been playing very good all year. I think Baltimore has found their tight end in Mark Andrews, double digit catches. I think 140, 130. I know at one point he had 133 yards, a touchdown. He might have wound up with two. He's had kind of these games at different points this year, and even besides the kind of game like he had today, he's been pretty consistent all year. And I think he's even made Lamar Jackson look like a better passer than he actually is the way he's playing. So I gave my last game ball to Mark Andrews, even though they didn't win. I think his performance kind of kept him in the mix in that game. Jordan, anyone left on your list?
Yeah, so I had Huntley too. I think just keeping a game that close and in as much as they could have probably just went away to kind of keep coming back and to make it really they could have went to overtime had they just kicked the extra point. It was great. And then I had I had Carson Wentz. I think even in the win, I think he ended up 5 for 12, 57 yards and a touchdown and a pick. And he really didn't contribute to the win at all. Um, it's tough to criticize him. They did win, but I think in a game like that, you would want to see him kind of just not really keep the other team in the game. I think that's a game you want to see Wentz just kind of keep the foot on the gas, do kind of, and he's not being asked to do much. And I think that's the big thing is when you're only throwing the ball 12 times, you really should be somewhat efficient. I think they're kind of giving the load so much to Taylor. Wentz really has to be good when he gets the shot, and it doesn't have to be any big time plays or major touchdowns. Just keep the ball in front of you, keep the ball on your, with your, in the possession of your team, and keep getting it to playmakers. And I think he didn't really do that. Luckily, Jonathan Taylor is good enough to overcome that, this week. But I in as much as I've kind of rooted on Wentz and I've kind of defended him a lot, this is kind of one of those games I think that he made some questionable throws and he's just for as much as or not as much as little as he's being asked to do, I think we see him make a bit more mistakes than he should be.
Yeah, I
It's
almost
Sam
put
Ellinger
him on my
time.
list. What's that?
I said it's Sam Ellinger time. Get the Longhorn in there. Get the rookie in
I
there.
almost put Wentz on my list. I didn't because a couple other guys in some of the later games today I thought were more worthy. But yeah, I think they're relying too much on Jonathan Taylor. Like honestly, he's MVP caliber, but but Wentz still in this game. I think his QBR was 38 38, a QBR of 38. That's not good. they're gonna have to have better days from him if they're going to make an extended playoff appearance. So I can't argue with the choice. Who's left on your list, David?
My only other GOAT that I pulled out was the Atlanta Falcons running backs. I like to pick
Yeah.
on a position unit from time to time,
Yeah.
and so they contributed a little more than 40 yards. Matt Ryan threw down 20 yards rushing, but if you just look at the actual players who are paid money to run the ball, a little over 40 yards. Mike Davis, 21 yards. Cordell Patterson, who actually has spent the vast majority of his career as a wide receiver, he had 11 carries for 18 yards. The longest carry among a running back was 7 yards. So, and it wasn't that long ago that the Falcons were one of the highest scoring teams in the league. They've lost some players. Matt Ryan's kind of winding down his career. I think he's definitely toward the extreme back end of his career. But that it was just a poor overall performance, and they lost 31-13 to San Francisco, and San Francisco is a pretty good team, but they're not like that great. Not that I expect a lot, from the Falcons, but that's just one of those overall performances that stood out to me. That was pretty sad. I'm a fan of running backs, John. You kind of know this. I love Walter Payton, Earl Campbell, Ricky Williams. I'm a fan of just pounding the ball down a team's throat. So it kind of saddens me to see some of these teams that can't even cover half the field with their running backs. Just in terms of production. So that one stood out to me. I had to call them out.
Yeah, pretty anemic there. When they signed Mike Davis, I mean, if you were into fantasy football, all your fantasy books, like, he's gonna have a monster year. Atlanta might be better than people think. And Mike Davis has been Davis has been enough of a disappointment that it's allowed Cordarrelle Patterson to actually have a pretty good year and actually have some, not today, obviously, but
Yeah.
Cordarrelle Patterson's had some big games this year, and that door was open today. They both played poorly, and hence why the whole backfield made the goat house for David Lee. I won't argue. My last guy is in the same game with Jerry Jeudy, the Denver Cincinnati game. He happens to be on the winning team, and that's Jamar Chase. 1 catch for 3 yards. So if you combine Jerry Jeudy's and Jamar Chase's, two arguably very good young receivers, their combined line, both of them combined, 1 catch for 3 yards. And neither one got hurt. And I feel bad for the fantasy league guy that had both of them in the starting wide receiver lineup, because you just got in most leagues you got 1.3 for those combined two guys. And if you would have told me that Jerry Jeudy and Jamar Chase would have 1 catch for 3 yards combined without injuries, if you said it with injuries, I would have said, wow, that sucks for both of them getting hurt. But without injuries, and that's the stat line combined, that is pretty anemic on both ends. And so we can give these out even on winning teams. So, Chase is going to get one from me today. I know he's a rookie, but, and let's be honest, Burrow loves him. So I don't think it was because Burrow wasn't looking for him, or the Baker and OBJ thing where they don't love each, you don't love me, don't throw me the ball. I just think he had a bad day, and it's worthy of that. Is there anyone left on anyone's list? I guess is my next. Jordan, you got anybody left?
No, my last one was Wentz.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Yeah. So just to remind everybody, we are on live Sunday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 in Dallas, where David is. And if you don't catch us live, that's okay. We are uh, on all major podcast platforms after the fact. So I usually get that thing uploaded for Monday or at least by Tuesday to catch an audio form. You can also catch the video on the network we belong to, which is the Six Pack Coverage Nation. Look for Six Pack Coverage Nation on YouTube, and you can catch the video anytime you want there as well. So again, I know I say this every week, guys. Now we're really getting close to that, finish line, if you will. There's really no weeks for error. With my Steelers and Jordans, we really can't afford probably no more than one more loss, and that's even just depending on who it's to too, which could they got Kansas City next week, so it's crunch time. Like you certain teams right here are up against the eight ball, and can't afford to lose many more games if they want to have a shot. We have a lot of teams still in it. There's very few teams, honestly, just outright eliminated. I think, it's funny watching some of these teams that you sort of like penciled in for really long playoff runs, like the Cardinals today getting beat pretty soundly by the Lions. The Packers and Ravens game, which I thought the Packers would roll them with all their injuries and Huntley starting, was a closer game. I know, like you said, a couple late junk touchdowns, if you will, but I don't. And now we see the Buccaneers not playing great. So I don't know who. Now is it the Chiefs again? Kind of the favorite. The Bills are a weird team. I'm. I know. Every time I say this, that comes back and bites me in the butt. I don't believe in the Patriots. I know their record's good. I know they're still leading the AFC East, but I'm just not sold on a long playoff run for them. So the one thing I think we're at is, and I think that's what makes it fun. I think any one of these postseason teams can beat almost anybody and eliminate someone that we would consider that the favorite types, whether that's the Rams, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bills. I don't think there's any chalk like we see in a lot of years where you kind of know it's really just three or four teams you're going to definitely see playing that last game. I think it's the playoffs are going to. I think leading up to the playoffs here, the last few weeks of the regular season, with the games being so meaningful and the room for error to be so slim. But I think even once the postseason starts, I think anything can happen, and the parity. The NFL wanted parity. I think they really have got in it, and I think it's fun. I'm going to say it's fun to watch, and I like to watch when we don't know for sure who's going to get there and who's going to win it. I think it makes things more interesting, especially if the Steelers were kind of that every year they got a Super Bowl type team chance, and it was like this, I wouldn't like it. But the fact that they're not there yet right now, I like the fact that everyone else is sort of anybody. This is anybody's Lombardi to chase. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean it's the same real situation it was weeks ago. I think we're kind of waiting. I think we have an idea of those teams that are really going to contend. It's just like you said. I think anyone can really lose to anyone this year. I think there's less of the tiers. I mean, in the past, it feels like there's that solid first tier and a real good second tier, and after that, you have a few playoff teams, but they're not really gonna shake too much up. This year, it feels like there's not a whole big difference in a team that's the 1 seed and a team that's a 6th seed. It really genuinely feels like any game can really go any way depending on who gets that momentum first. A way a ball kind of flips, field position stuff. It really feels like like it comes down to that game. And I think in the past, like you said, a lot of it feels like it's already come down to what's on paper. We kind of have an idea who should be able to walk in. Where this year, really, it feels like every other week, whether it's a certain matchup on the field or how teams kind of scheme up against each other, we have different results, or we have kind of surprising results from games that we think we kind of have a handle on, or oh, this should turn out this way, and it just doesn't. And I think that's the thing that's going to be exciting is right towards the end, that last couple weeks where they're basically additional playoff games, and you have a loss gets you in, or a loss gets you out, and a win gets you in. It'll be interesting to see those games where we see a team we think should be able to just win this game pretty easily and get in, and we see kind of a surprise like we saw kind of like the Lions today. There's just so many teams that can look great when they put it together for that weekend, and it is a super exciting thing. And I think definitely coming down to the playoffs, it'll be very interesting. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of those teams, mainly in the AFC, kind of round themselves out. Like the Chiefs, I think are really starting to look good. And I think that's the thing is we're kind of waiting for teams to click it in, and they haven't. But it'll be interesting when the playoffs come around. Do the Chiefs, do the Buccaneers, do those teams who we know have the talent and know have the ability, do they really start to kind of bring it in and focus it in and look like the kind of Chiefs and Buccaneers teams of the past that are more on the mission? Or is it still gonna be kind of that shaky and just uncertainty that's really been around the whole NFL this whole year?
Yep. David, any closing thoughts?
I mean, I just kind of look at it as, I think we know who the top 3 or 4 teams are in each conference, but I don't think we know who the top team is in each conference. The Patriots losing and the Cardinals losing, it's kind of like, the Patriots losing to the Colts. Okay, the Colts are kind of rising. They've got a force in Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, it was kind of like, well, are those the top? Are those the number 1 seeds in each conference? I don't know. Is it the Packers now? Maybe. Is it the Bucks? Are they going to lose to the Saints? Is it the Rams, the Cowboys? So I think that's where we are. Maybe that's what the NFL wants. Maybe they want kind of like a, here's kind of the top 4 teams, and now let's play season number 2. The postseason's kind of a second season, and let's see who comes out on top of that, and let's see who kind of streaks and rises, kind of like the Buccaneers did last year. But I don't know. I kind of like having a team that looks unbeatable, that looks unstoppable, because if they do win, then it's kind of like, man, they were unstoppable that year. Remember them? Remember the Chiefs and how nobody could stop them, and Tyreek Hill and all their weapons. But if they lose, it's kind of like, wow, they beat the best. They really deserve it. So I'm more of a fan of kind of having a team that just almost looks unbeatable, that just looks like, man, they're just have put it all together, and they score a ton of points, and their defense is good. And, because kind of either way, it's kind of a cool story. But, it's also fun to kind of see which team kind of rises out of this kind of muddied up pack, so that's kind of what I'm seeing so far right now, just in terms of, kind of who's stepping up and who's, but like Jordan said, it's kind of, you have this other second tier group that's trying to play their way in. It's kind of like an NIT tournament, to use a college basketball term. A little group of teams that are, that really could go either way. So with 4 games left, yeah, it's going to be kind of it's kind of like the dot race in baseball, where the dots are racing and one's ahead and the other one drops back and the other one gets ahead. And so it feels a lot like that. So that's kind of fun too. But yeah, it'll be an interesting next 4 weeks.
Yeah, and then you throw in some of this COVID stuff now too, and games rescheduled, and teams missing starters, and it's crazy. So I think we're in for I think that's the word. I think we're in for a crazy 4 weeks, and maybe even a crazy postseason. Might be one of those years when it's in the books. We look back and said, we'll remember it, much like you said, David. It'll be a year we'll remember, but not for like, man, that team was just a juggernaut. We'll just remember it for all the zaniness, the craziness, and everything that happened during the year. So and we got four regular season weeks, and then it's that postseason, and who knows who's gonna. There's really only four or five teams that honestly are officially eliminated. You got your Lions, Texans, Jaguars, Jets type teams, and then really a lot of the rest of everyone else is. I'm not saying that they're in good spots, but at least mathematically, they're still alive. Their fans can at least go to sleep knowing, hey, we're not eliminated just yet. So it's going to be fun. We'll see how this all plays out. We won't have any shortage of material to discuss. So we'll call it a night there, and we'll see everybody here next Sunday. And like I said, if you don't catch us live, you can always download us in audio form. With that being said, we'll see you next week.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yes.